Welcome, my friends, to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, and I'm thrilled you're joining me today for a fun conversation with a passionate author. We're kicking off the program, like it's our tradition, with a short reading from the feature book. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started.
Hi, my name is Jenni Stand, and I am the author of Mad Money and Murder. It's my first mystery, and it's the first book in the Pond Investigations mystery series that I've created. To give you a basic idea, it is a cross between a cozy and a traditional mystery with a touch of supernatural. It's a cozy in the usual cozy aspects where not a lot of graphic violence or anything of that type or steamy scenes or anything, but it has a traditional investigator in my protagonist, but she also has psychic abilities that she uses on her cases, but she doesn't advertise herself as a psychic or even tell people beyond her immediate circle that know about these abilities. Chapter 1. I quit, Elizabeth Susan Pond said aloud for the first time. Liz stared down into the murky, receding waters of the San Antonio River below her. She and her lifelong best friend were standing on one of the many limestone footbridges connecting the walking paths that made up the historic San Antonio Riverwalk. What? Pam Whitlow asked. I quit. I'm not going to be a private investigator anymore, Liz replied, studying her reflection in the river water. Her shoulder-length dark brown hair pulled back into a ponytail. She looked tired. The dark circles under her green eyes were obvious, even in her distant reflection. What? Why? You can't. I won't let you. Pam crossed her arms. Her long striped knit sweater swished around her knees, and her long brown hair flowed around her shoulders. Liz smirked at the woman she loved like a sister, and she may as well be since they were born on the same day, in the same hospital, only one room apart. And how are you going to stop me? Stopping someone from doing what they want isn't very zen of you. You're right, but stopping someone from making a huge mistake is. You found what you love to do. Liz opened her mouth to interrupt. Pam held up a finger to stop her. Normally, I was going to say that. Normally, you love your work, and you're good at it. Great at it. People dream of being that lucky. Yes, I know, and fine, I'll admit it. I'm good at it. But Regina Masterson, Liz turned back to look at the river, wiping away the single tear as it rolled down her cheek. The memory of her last case, her first real failure as a private investigator, brought tears to her eyes. Pam's voice softened. Regina would have been grateful that you found her body for her family. You started looking for her, even when the police saw no reason to believe anything was wrong. You did right by her, regardless of the unfortunate outcome. I know, you're right. I keep telling myself that. But it's not been enough to get me back into the office. Of course I'm right. I'm the wise one in this friendship, remember? Pam teased, bumping Liz's shoulder with her fist. And you should, get back into the office, I mean. Liz filled her lungs deeply, released a loud rush of air, and resumed staring down into the dark waters below. It was that time of year again. Every January, the waters were drained from sections of the man made river that ran through the heart of San Antonio, Texas. The sophisticated lock system, designed to help prevent flooding when it rained, needed routine maintenance. While the water was drained and filtered, the concrete riverbed and locks received a thorough cleaning and inspection, and any necessary repairs were completed. Locals had even created a week-long party to celebrate the annual event called the Mud Festival, complete with a king and queen, a mud pie eating contest, and a pub crawl of the many bars and pubs along the Riverwalk. A wide banner hung high between two tall cypress trees bordering the river, advertising the festival to begin the following Sunday, the day the waters returned. Liz enjoyed this time of year. Since she lived, worked, and jogged next to the San Antonio River, she appreciated the city's efforts to take care of the landmark. This year was different, though. Liz was too distracted to enjoy either the annual draining or the preparations for the upcoming festivities. Liz? Her best friend's voice drew Liz back to the conversation at hand. You don't understand. I've lost all faith in my investigative skills. Look at me. I'm a trained and licensed private investigator with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and neither helped me find Regina before it was too late. No one blames you for that. No one expects you to be perfect, and no one has a perfect record. Regina's parents don't blame you, do they? Pam asked, placing a hand on her hip. Liz could feel her friend's firm gaze on her as she shook her head. But that doesn't stop me from feeling guilty. Right now, I don't feel like I could locate a ream of paper in an office supply store without a map. And that's just part of my worries. She pushed away from the cool limestone parapet of the bridge. The pair of friends walked off the stone footbridge in front of her building and turned left. It was early evening and the walk was busy. The crisp January night wasn't keeping people from enjoying a diverting night out at the bars. Someone bumped into her, and besides an offhand, "Excuse me," Liz's disappointment came to the forefront because she saw nothing. And therein lied her other problem. Aside from being a trained private investigator, Liz had another skill, one she was born with. Elizabeth Susan Pond was a psychic. As she grew up, she learned the names of her various paranormal abilities. Clairvoyance allowed her to see the future and the past, while psychometry enabled her to know the history of an object. She also had a smidge of empathic ability, a skill that helped her sense the emotions of the people around her. Even to Liz, this sounded unbelievable, but she stopped fighting disbelief in her abilities a long time ago. As a rule, Liz didn't tell anyone. She could count the number of people who knew about her unique talents on one hand. 5. That was all the people who knew her deepest secret, including the woman beside her. "You still aren't seeing anything?" Pam whispered after they broke free of the crowd. Liz shook her head. "Nothing. Meditation isn't helping, mostly because I can't do it." "What do you mean you can't do it? You've been meditating since we were kids when Aunt Audrey figured out it could help you with your visions." Pam's voice dropped to a whisper with that last word. "I mean, I can't do it. Every time I close my eyes, a shudder spread across Liz's shoulders. All I see is what I saw the night we found Regina, the barn, Regina dead on the floor, and candles everywhere. I've thrown out all my candles. I can't stand the smell or sight of them anymore." Pam cringed at the description. "I can't imagine. Are you still having nightmares?" Liz nodded. Nightmares for someone like Liz were especially torturous since sometimes they came true. "So, you aren't seeing anything?" "Nightmares are the mind's way of helping you deal with trauma. You can't meditate." "Wow. Let's tackle this one thing at a time. First, I know it's weird for you not to have your—" Pam paused as a large group passed them. "Crocheting work anymore." Liz looked at her friend. Her eyebrows crinkled. Then she remembered. Crocheting was the word they used when they were kids when they were talking about her visions in public. She smiled at her friend. "You've been very stressed for the past month, and everyone knows how stress can affect all kinds of things in the human body and mind. Maybe, just maybe, for you, stress can also affect your crocheting." More people bumped into them as they walked. Liz's bottom lip popped out as she considered the idea. "That's reasonable. As for meditating, you have access to not one, but two yoga and meditation teachers. Your mom and I can help you overcome this hump. You don't have to close your eyes to meditate. You can simply focus on a single object or even a blank wall. I've never done it, but I'll find information on it and we'll learn it together. What's next?" Liz smiled at her friend's direct approach to problem solving. "Work. I'm considering a career change. Maybe focus on my locksmithing job instead. Part time brings in extra money, and the change to full time wouldn't be that difficult. One tragic case doesn't mean you should give up what you enjoy doing. You've told me you've never fully relied on your other skills in your investigations, so you can still do the work, except, of course, when you go after one of your hobby cases." The mention of her hobby cases brightened Liz's face. Even though she had lived her whole life with ESP, she was a dyed in the wool skeptic. She had met no one like herself in all her 28 years. The psychics she came across were frauds, nothing more than criminals milking innocent people of their life savings and trust. This infuriated Liz. If a client came through her door talking about how they were bilked by some con artist claiming to be psychic, Liz took the case pro bono. "I would miss taking down those criminals." "I'm sure, and the victims appreciate your hard work on those fraud cases. Let's put a pin in that for now. What would you call this new locksmith endeavor?" "Pond's Locks?" Liz offered weakly. "Dr. Pick." Pam grinned brightly. Liz laughed. "That sounds more like a banjo playing dentist." "Pond Security?" Nah, that sounds like a bodyguard company, and no one would believe you as a bodyguard, even with your boxing skills. She dismissed her own suggestion before Liz responded. Pawns picks? That's a good one. Pam raised her hands as if she was framing it on a billboard. Pawns picks. You lock it, we pick it. That sounds like a tongue twister. The two friends tried saying it 5 times fast. They both failed miserably, laughing at their failures. Memories of reciting tongue twisters when they were little girls flowed through Liz's mind. Of course, then there was usually a mouthful of crackers involved. As their laughter subsided, Liz looked around, noticing that the crowds had thinned. The pair passed under the Precious Street Bridge and stopped. Wow, Pam and Liz said in unison. They were standing in front of the newest addition to the Riverwalk, a new hotel. Liz's eyes followed the beams, admiring the handiwork. She respected the people who created a building like that. Everyone involved, from the architect to the construction crew. The ability to go from an idea to a completed structure fascinated her. I hear they're getting a 5-star chef to run the restaurant, Liz commented, not taking her gaze off the structure. Really? I heard they're creating this whole Zen garden greenhouse experience on half the roof next to the pool. Cool. I can't wait to explore during the grand opening. As local business owners, they were invited to such events, especially along the Riverwalk. While Liz had her investigation company, Liz's mom, Audrey, and Pam co owned the popular yoga studio called Alamo Bells Yoga next door. Me too. Brr. I'm getting cold, Pam commented, turning away from the skeletal structure. It's dropped a few degrees since we started our walk, that's for sure. Liz crammed her icy hands into her jacket pockets as they walked past Marriage Island, a tiny heart shaped islet in the river that had hosted many unions. Tall trees hid the night sky, but with thousands of twinkle lights dangling along the branches along the river. It was easy to imagine you could see the stars. Do you want to go up and over or keep walking? Liz asked as they wandered in the direction of the next bridge. As she walked along, something in the river, what remained of the river anyway, caught her eye. What's that? She spoke aloud as curiosity got the better of her. Liz stepped off the sidewalk onto the limestone gravel, passing planters and solar lights. A black chain attached to the decorative wrought iron posts created a safety line under the bridge's shadow, the city's way of keeping pedestrians from tumbling into the river. Liz stopped at an opening in the low chain fence and looked down into the riverbed. The water was much lower now, and vertigo threatened Liz's balance as she leaned precariously over the edge. What is that? She repeated as she crouched down. Probably another coffee maker like last year. I'm freezing. Let's go up and over and we can make hot chocolate at your apartment. Just a second. The waters continued to recede as she watched. The cold air settled around Liz in her stillness. A muddy, bloated, deformed face stared at her out of the murk. A scream lodged in Liz's throat. Liz fell onto her backside and, in shock, crawling her way to the sidewalk, the gravel hard against her icy hands as she scrambled away from the eerie sight.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm excited you guys are joining us here with a new author and a fabulous new book. If you're new to the podcast, go ahead and subscribe. You do not want to miss a single episode. We're here Monday nights with new and exciting authors for you to get to listen and enjoy. And because you guys are here to figure out who we have on the show, let's get started. Hello, Miss Jenny. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am so excited you're here. I am thrilled, by the way. This is kind of my combination of all my favorite genres. You're talking mystery, cozy, with paranormal in between. So I need to jump in book one in the series. Where did this idea come from?
Honestly, I've had the idea since high school of the character of a psychic private investigator who doesn't believe in psychics. She's literally lived in my head for close to 30 years. And I've always wanted to write it down. And I was always a fan of private investigator stories growing up in the 80s. That's when all the good ones were. I watched all of them. But the idea of a psychic private investigator is almost non existent. And in books and shows that even mention it, you often find out when you read the book that no, they're really not a private investigator, licensed and everything. They're just somebody who every now and then they help the police. So I kind of had got to have some fun with it, blending some genres together for this character.
As she went through this process, I want to know this book one in the series. She's going through a career crisis. It's not a midlife crisis, it's a
Mhm,
career crisis specifically.
mhm.
How did the idea for setting this in Texas and this case came to you? What were you going with this?
Well, we were visiting San Antonio several times. We were going there for various entertainment tourist type reasons. And then I started having the idea after buying mystery writing course. And the one time after the course, we went to San Antonio and we were walking around and I was like, I just love visiting this city. We always find new stuff to do. There is so much going on. This would be the perfect place to set this. And then while we were at breakfast one morning, had one of those little glowy pucks that they give you to let you know when your table's ready. And we were waiting outside because it was so crowded in the restaurant. And I walked along the street with my daughter and I looked across the street and I went, oh my God, there's Liz's apartment. Because I have her office and apartment in the same place. And then I was like, in my head for the story, she lives and works directly across from the police department. And I went, oh, well, I can fictionally put a police department across the street and make that work. And I turn around and it's the San Antonio Police Department for the bike patrol for downtown San Antonio. So I'm like, well, there we go.
Confirmation in case you needed that the universe is going, this is where it's supposed to be. You're on the right path. I love it. So tell me, dear, how long did it take you to put this book together and how much research did you had to do to pull it off?
Well, it took about, I think it was about 2 years from the prep work to publishing. Of research, I watched actually videos of private investigators because at the time when I was doing this portion of it, COVID was in full swing, lockdowns were happening. I wasn't getting in to hang out with any private investigators anytime soon. So I opted for watching videos of various private investigators they were putting out on YouTube of what they do on a daily basis. The most television shows, you can pick and choose, you can find those commonalities that are okay, that's the common thread that's going through for investigators for what they do, for how they're doing their work, rather than the other side of it, that more fictionalized angle of it. But I was watching a lot of YouTube videos specifically on private investigators. I had done a lot of research on psychics, so I was watching TV shows and various videos again on the psychic side of things. I have loads of mystery writing books and mysteries to read to pull from. And so I did that kind of work. I even researched real world cases of psychics who have helped on the police department and read some of those. That list, believe it or not, is very tiny. It is very short, like a dozen over all my research. And I was going back pretty far. And it can run from like the early 60s to present. And you're finding this tiny list of the same names kept popping up. So I'm like, okay, these are the ones that are going out there and doing this. And then if you Google psychics, though, man, every other person in the state of California is a psychic because you go to a website that's out of that state, there are thousands of psychics you can contact for advice. I found that kind of entertaining, but I really got an appreciation for this tiny number of people I was coming across that were helping a World War case here in the US and in England were helping on cases, but all the rest of them, yeah, I took the rest of them with a grain of salt.
I'm amazed that California has thousands of psychics.
Yeah,
Why? Why is that necessary? What is going on here?
I do not know. I did think that was kind of entertaining. It's because when I went researching and I found, the whole, well, what about call a psychics kind of thing? Do they have a missing persons section? There are so many. There are so many. I thought that was entertaining. So, not to say that they're all frauds, but the number that I found that were showing up consistently in news stories, I was like, okay, I'll lean towards those ones and read them over.
It's interesting as you went down this path to kind of make you go and we all want somebody to give us some concrete answers of something that could happen.
Hmm.
Psychics have made it a business to like,
Yes.
I'm going to give you hope because that's all they're selling.
Yes, yes. Hope is really the excellent way of, or the answer you're really already telling yourself, and they confirm it for you. Should I quit my job of 22 years and do this? And when they tell you the answer that you really, really want to hear, and they can typically, people can tell, anybody talking to somebody that's going down that path, you can tell when it's like, okay, they want to hear this answer. And so that's hope is an excellent definition of what they're selling on that regard. I also came across a really awesome document from the CIA that was released about how law enforcement should work with psychics, what to expect, how to interact with them, and what to watch for, because have pen and paper handy, because it becomes this basic case of just verbal tirade will come out of them of all this information. And then you find out later on, oh, when they have the final conclusion, there's six dots in all of that information that fit exactly correct. It was an interesting document. It's out there in the public and you can find it. It's a PDF. I printed it out and I kept it with all my research. I just thought it was a lot of fun to read.
I'm finding interesting that like our police department, our law enforcement and security is actually not completely like blowing it off,
No.
which is kind of more interesting because I figure they'll be like, oh, please go away. You're a psychic. But the fact that they actually have taken it into account is quite
Mhm.
interesting. I'm like, surprise.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I was too. When I came across that, I was fascinated that not only was it more accepted than I would have thought,
Mhm.
it was the CIA of all people, groups of people were saying, okay, here's the guidelines. I just thought that was really neat.
It gives me some kind of hope that okay, maybe not everything's a total fraud. That's
Yep.
interesting.
Hmm.
So tell me, dear, you said this is book one in this series. You know how many books are you trying to do?
Book two is under revision. Book three has been outlined, and I've written about 18,000 words of it. But I honestly have a what I call a living document that anytime a good idea comes to me, I put it in that. And so I'm currently at around 17 to 20 books ideas for this set of characters. And the reason the number fluctuates is because every now and then I'll just like read through the list and go, you know what? These two ideas will go well together and they will make a good book if I combine them. So the number kind of fluctuates, but I just have the first like 5 books. I know what those are gonna be. And then after that, I get the next chunk organized. So that way it allows for that. I have an idea of where the characters are going. For the first 5, there's a common thread of a mystery that carries through them, even though each book will have a standalone mystery you can read and have the conclusion for. I have this thread of a mystery running through the first 5. And then I will continue on with the rest of them. But I like to have a handful figured out so I know where it's going. And it helps me with a few other aspects of character development and everything.
Ooh, I love it. Awesome. I miss Jenny. Murder mysteries where you're tackling with a cozy touch. Are you writing in any other genre?
Actually, I do have, after the first 5 books are done, I was planning on starting to incorporate in a standalone book every now and then, every few books, so that I could expand into different genres. Those ones at the moment seem to be more actual thriller based or action adventure thriller types. And they're ones that I've had again dancing around in my head for years. But I have like romance story ideas. I have these thriller types. I even have a story idea that honestly, if I'd been able to write it years ago, would have made a really good addition to the Die Hard series.
I like it.
So, yeah. So, yeah, all over.
So, Madam, question. Where can our listeners find the books when they can learn more about you? Where are you located? Tell us.
Well, I'm in Abilene, Texas, and I'm an indie author. The paperback and Kindle versions are both available through Amazon, but the paperback is actually on most bookstore websites around the world. So they can order it in most places where they can order books. They're carrying it. At the beginning, you kind of go, who's selling it? And so I've found it on bookstore websites in England and Italy and Australia, Japan, all over Canada, and all across the United States, and not, more independent shops are they offer it on their website. Oftentimes, for independent authors, they'll offer it that way, and rather than buy it and put it in their stores. So it's available in a wide variety of ranges.
Awesome. And do you have a website for yourself?
I do. It's jennistand.com. It's JENNI stand.com.
Perfect. Love it. So, madam, before you leave us, are you ready for the lightning round?
Sure, I have no idea what the lightning round is, though.
They're easy peasy. Don't think too hard on these. We're going to go quickly. Coffee or tea?
Ooh, both. I like both of them.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm impressed. Summer or winter?
In Canada, I love the winters. In Texas, though, the summers are brutal. So fall.
I like it. I like it. Drama or action?
Action.
Okay. Here's a little different. If you had a warning label, what would it be?
I don't know. Crazy on occasion.
I like it. That's cute. But it has been a pleasure having you on the podcast. It's been so much fun. I'm so excited about your book. Congratulations. Do you have any closing remarks for us?
I can't think of anything. Keep an eye out for the second book in the series. It's called Death is in the Cards. And book 3 even has a title, which is Sage's Bluff. So they're not all murder mysteries either. I'm planning on, there's so many crimes out there. I'm going to work on more than just murder. So it's,
I like
but
it.
if you read it, I hope you enjoy it.
Aw. To our listeners, go ahead, check out Miss Jenny's book out. Check out this fun story. It takes place in Texas. For all of you guys who are here, come and join us. It's going to be a blast. Madam, it is truly a pleasure. Thank you for joining us, everyone. We'll be back next week with another exciting author. Bye.